Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Alta Live. My name is Beth Spotswood. I'm Special Projects Director here at Alta Journal, and I am so excited to welcome each and every one of you to today's conversation with Rancho Gordo's Steve Sando. Here's the rundown, basically. Today's episode is kind of like our dream of what Alta Live should be. There's this incredible article that Gustavo Arellano wrote in our current issue. This is available in our magazine and online. And then what Alta Live does every Wednesday, we have a conversation about an article from the magazine or one of our online articles. And so this is just everything came together magically today to make this work. And I am so excited to have both of these great guests here. I know they each come with their own big, exciting following. So I will do very brief introductions of them. Steve Sando has taken, since 2001, has taken the lowly bean from a healthy but neglected, overbred member of the veggie family to near superstar status ingredient. His company, Rancho Gordo, grows heirloom and vintage varieties and works with influential chefs all over the place. Steve has been named one of Bon Appetit's Bon Appetit Magazine's Hot 10, along with a bunch of other famous people. And most importantly, I just found out he's been an Alta subscriber, a paid Alta subscriber for years, which makes me suddenly in love with him. Gustavo Arellano, many of you know he's a longtime Alta Journal contributing editor. He writes for Los Angeles Times. And most recently, I have to give you this shout out, Gustavo. We're so proud. He's a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize.
No.
We are amped. When I tell you, I gasped. So I'm going to turn this conversation over to the two of them. But before I do, guys, Alta Journal is an award-winning quarterly magazine focused on California and the West. For $50 a year, that's it. You get this gorgeous magazine, 4 of them. January, April, July, October, and a special gift. Every half a year, we do a different gift. So I really, really hope you'll consider supporting us with a paid membership. Again, it's $50 a year. I'll drop a link in the chat. We do Alta Live every Wednesday at 12:30 and the California Book Club the third Thursday of the month. This interview will be recorded and posted to Alta Online later this afternoon. There's also pop your questions in the chat. Gustavo and I are both going to try and read them. I see folks from all over the country in the audience today. So I'm amped to see you and amped to hear both Gustavo and Steve. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all. Gracias all for tuning in, all you people of the beans and the doubters of the bean. And so today, and full disclosure, by the way, Steve is a compa of mine. In other words, he is a homie. He is a dear, dear friend of mine, and especially my wife, Delilah. So this conversation is really going to be a conversation between the both of us. And then after that, we'll get to you. So Steve, the obvious question that everyone wants to know, what were the last beans you ate and how did you prepare them?
They were green baby limas that we just started growing this year. And a friend of mine, I went to a dinner party at a friend's house and she had made them and pureed them with tahini and other things, and then made that as a bed for spring vegetables. And it was very lemony and absolutely delicious. She called it hummus, and I had to correct her. It's like, you can't call it hummus unless there are garbanzos, because hummus means garbanzo.
You don't want, yeah, you don't want to get into that controversy of the New York Times saying add peas to your guacamole, and all of a sudden it's something new.
There's no controversy. You just don't do that, please. There's just anyway. But anyway, it was absolutely delicious. So now we call it a lima bean tahini spread, and it actually is going to be in our newsletter this week because it's so delicious.
That's awesome. So I'm not going to try to go over the whole story of Steve just because
you went pretty deep.
The most in-depth profile ever. Take that, New Yorker. Nothing against New Yorker. But no, the reason I say this is to urge all of you, yes, join Alta, subscribe to this amazing publication that I'm so honored to be a part of. And so I did I did a big profile of Steve. So please read it. It tells the whole story of Steve, how he got into beans, where he's planning to go to. And so I'll hit a little bit here and there at it, but really this is going to be the post interview, not the post interview. And yeah, Steve, it's all questions that you're already going to know. But one of the big things I would want you to talk about right now, I mean, at this moment, in your career where you just announced that you're going to be moving into new offices still in Napa, where your bean clubs continues to be as popular as ever, if not more so. How does it make you feel to see beans having their moment in the American foodie pantry?
Well, they've almost they've had their moment many times and moments past. So I always hate it. I mean, our mutual friend Evan Kleiman said, "Oh, beans are having their moment at the height of COVID," and I just cringe. Think, well, no, it's going to go. I would be more excited if I changed the way people eat and beans are really incorporated into our food and not just this week's flavor. That would make me the happiest. So I actually cringed with beans. And also, there's a whole trend out of the UK of using canned beans and calling runner beans brothy beans. I'm sorry. Uh, and it's like, what? It's out of context. They're canned. You're not even cooking them, and they're not butter beans. They're runner beans. So I'm not in love with the moment thing. I want to incorporate it rather than make it a trend.
And that's what I love about you, Steve, is that you are you're happy with what you have done. You are, you take your victory lap when needed, but yet your mission is not done because for you, ultimately, truly, it is about making beans into all sorts of beans, all these wonderful heirloom beans into a part of the American fabric. So when we think about the classic American foods like corn, like hot dogs, like hamburgers, you want bean to be part of that, right in that pantry.
Well, especially since they're indigenous to the Americas. So, and I remember just being here in Napa, every obscure vinegar from some valley in France is known, and yet we don't even know our own food. So I remember growing the riozape, thinking these were absolutely delicious. My goal is that every home cook would say, "Oh, we'll do riozape tonight," and know what that means, and know it that would have a dark bean with a chocolatey bean broth. So we're not there, so I still have a lot of work to do. Is how I look at it.
In Rio Sape was the kickoff bean. Someone mentioned the line that I said that Steve was able to create a Marvel Cinematic Universe out of beans, all these bean heroes and heroines coming in. So Rio Sape was the Iron Man, the very first bean to really take off. One thing I didn't get into the profile. What were your memories of beans growing up? In other words, were beans part of your
Oh.
regular diet? What are some of the beans that you especially liked?
Well, growing up in California, even though we weren't Hispanic at all, when my mother was tired and really in a bad mood and just wanted to put food on the table, we had tostadas. So we bought pre-made tostadas. We had Rosarito refried beans that my dad claimed he doctored up. That was always the thing. I don't know what he did. And we had the Victoria hot sauce with the thermometer, and we had tostadas. And I loved the beans, the best part of it for me. So that was it. I always liked them, but it wasn't an obsession. No, then you know what? In the late 80s, black beans suddenly appeared out of nowhere. No, late 70s. And I remember going and thinking this is the most delicious exotic thing I've ever had in my life because it's like the pintos, which are far too common for me because I was fancy. And then no, they were great. So I think Rosarito refrieds, and then when black beans arrived, at least on the West Coast in the late 70s, that was really exciting.
I
Also,
have
I
to
think that you could do
go
it.
ahead.
I just also that there's this intimidation with beans. Like, well, it takes hours and you have to soak and they give you gas and it's a burden. It's like, it actually isn't. It's stupid, easy work. So discovering that, and I think every bean person goes through that, where it's like, oh, this was not that big a deal and I can do this. I think there's a level of confidence you get as a home cook that beans do that.
I was about to say, I second you on Rosarito's canned refried beans. Even to this day, they have a nice creamy texture to it. If someone brings them up, yes, nothing's going to beat the quote unquote real deal, but in a pinch, they're perfectly fine.
hmm I yes, I haven't had them. I used to keep an emergency can in my pantry for probably 15 years, and that was starting to swell up. It was really old, and like I need to throw this away, and I never actually ended up using it, but I did have an emergency can of Rosarito refrieds and garbanzos just in case. But luckily, I've never had an emergency.
You say you loathe the idea of beans having a moment, but we cannot dispute that Rancho Gordo has been an incredible success story. In the article, I talk about how you say every year you keep growing and growing and growing. What is it about Rancho Gordo that took off in a way that other bean companies haven't or had never done until you did?
It's hard to know. I think I'm persistent. And when I had a tiny bit of success, I realized I've got to do this because I was 40 when I started and I really had a lot of other jobs that should have worked and never did. And I remember thinking, screw it, I can't do this. So I'm just going to get a garden and get a job at Target. This was before we boycotted it. But so, and I thought, so when I got the success, it's like, dude, this isn't going to come around again. When I first saw, and even though I actually feel more comfortable talking to home cooks than chefs, watching the chefs' reaction to them made me think, oh, this is the way to do it. It's not sort of a bitter old hippie food. It's not a lonely old person who lived through the Depression food. And it's really not just, Mexicans. It's everybody can do this. And I think I might have offered a way to do it. I also was very open about it. A lot of people, especially when they first discover Mexico, are very pedantic. It's like, no, this is how this is done in Mexico. Well, there's 15,000 Mexican cultures down there, and you can't speak in absolutes. And to me, it was always, oh, look at this cool thing I just found. I'm going to share it with you. So I think I realized early, even though I knew, and I was really snobby as anyone else, but I thought you reveal secrets and people are on your side at that point. So that's really my idea of marketing, is to reveal a secret.
And also, though, your marketing involves films from La Época de Oro, the golden age of Mexican cinema. Your logo is a woman from a film that you will never, ever reveal where the film still is from, not even in your will or anything, licking her lips. Where did that love come from? And the last time you came out in Alta before the profile, did a short interview with you about your love of Mexican calendar girls, those classic Mexican calendars that Rancho Gordo also sends out to customers if they pay just $1 every single year. So where did that love of Mexican iconography, but especially the films, come from?
Well, I've always loved more vintage stuff. I love great print ads. I love propaganda. But it's not that I thought, oh, this will be smart. It's like I just love this. And really, and this is the secret, is I love imposing my taste on other people who, and this isn't mainstream taste by any stretch, but oh, let me show you. This is actually this great thing. So I think it's like that. So I don't, it's not any master marketing plan. It's just, and you know what? I think we've had a couple of copycats and they keep coming and going. I love them. And I don't know that everybody can say that. And because I tend to go narrow and deep into things, I don't really have a casual interest in very many things at all. Like if it's worth knowing, let's find out, what was Celia Cruz doing before she was with Sonora Matancera? What was, if this kind of pork is available, why? I just love digging as deep as you can with things I love. And I think I'm doing the work for certain people, maybe.
You're definitely doing that work. I'm going to share a story, then I'd like you to share a story just to show you the transformative powers, at least to the audience, of Rancho Gordo beans. So my wife runs a market and deli in Santana, Alta Baja Market. It's not going to be the last plug for it, by the way. And so she she still sells ayocote negro beans, so black ayocote beans from southern Mexico. And so a mother and her daughter came into the store, and the daughter sees a price on them, sees a labeling, and basically tells my wife, like, "Oh, really? What are you trying to do? Selling some hipster beans?" The daughter's a Chicana, so Mexican American. The mother, a Mexican immigrant from Guerrero, she sees them and is like, "Oh my God, I have not seen ayocotes up here in the United States, if ever." So they buy a bag. The following day, the daughter comes back, wipes out my wife of all of her ayocote beans, and says, "My mother was crying when she tasted these beans, that they reminded her of her childhood, and they are absolutely delicious. And thank you for stocking these beans. And by the way, what on earth is Rancho Gordo?" So if you could share with us a story like that, like, you get so many stories. You're here on the comments, you're getting all these testimonials about people's encounters with Rancho Gordo. So share with us a story of either, how about a conversion story? Maybe someone who did not like Rancho beans at all, then taste Rancho Gordo and voila.
Well, I could even go to Mexico with the ayacotes. I had them and loved them. And here we have scarlet runners, which are related, and it's really, according to Sophie Coe in America's First Cuisines, it's probably the first cultivated crop in the Americas was ayacote beans in Oaxaca. So she's quite credible. But whether she, they're delicious. But when we started importing them, I wanted them, and we started with the Morado, which are the purple ones. The mother of my partner said, "Oh," and she's part Indian herself, would say, "Oh no, those are por indios. They're really awful. They're hard to digest." And it was like shocking to me that she would even say that out loud and not like these beans. And then we started getting them, and she's like, they're her favorite bean now. And she's from Hidalgo, so it's really culturally more Oaxaca or the Guerrero coast or other places. And when we first started doing this, nobody was eating ayacotes commercially. I mean, really, you had to go to the market or the tianguis and get them from someone who grew them. And now, I mean, I'm not saying it's because of us, but it is. I mean, they're this hipster thing in Mexico even, and it's like you weren't even eating them 15 years ago. We started importing in 2008, for the record.
And kind of a historiography here, as an aside, why did beans get associated with poor people, both in the United States and Mexico, and probably all over the world? Or conversely, is there a culture where beans are associated with the rich and the beautiful people?
Well, I think Rancho Gordo did that. Rich, beautiful. I don't know. I think the Italians don't have as much baggage with, and the French too. It's just you eat the beans at certain times, and certainly with cassoulet. Um, no, I mean it's really the downfall of so much. I mean, and when I first did the farmers markets, you'd get senior citizens who lived through the Depression, and they say, "Oh, do you have old Murphy beans?" I said, "Yeah, actually, it's this bean. I love that," and they wouldn't buy them, but they still had this nostalgic memory of them. No, I don't know where we got it. But it's the same.
Yeah.
They're so delicious. And that's when, you know, Thomas Keller from French Laundry, when he first saw them and decided, what you're doing is very important, he said to me, and I remember thinking, thank you. I think you're right. Um, it was the most lowly vegetable, and at that point, in the early 2000s, probably the most important restaurant in the United States. I think that was very hip of him. I mean, he comes under a lot of fire for a lot of things, but he did this because he loved beans, not for any other reason. And what they weren't hip at that point, for sure. And he still buys from us, so it's pretty great.
So many chefs across the country buy from Nashville to New Orleans, home people. You have all these people saying, Beth Sasso says, "Am I the only one who swore off dry beans until I tried Rancho Gordo beans?"
Um,
All these just amazing, amazing stories. So people want to know, what
but
is next for Rancho Gordo?
Well, so we bought an historic store here in Napa that was built in 1890, and it was known for years as Shackford's Kitchen Supply, and it was the best kitchen museum you could ever want. It had every O-ring for every size of espresso maker. It had cake tips, and I couldn't care less about decorating cakes, but I thought I want to do that. They had everything. It was so great. Unfortunately, Mr. Shackford retired, so Napa is full of wine tasting rooms, which is about as boring and the best way to kill a downtown as anything you can imagine. Uh, and the building sat open for a while, so we actually bought it. So we bought it. We're gonna move our offices and our retail store and the bean tasting room there. And it's so funny
Ooh.
because you talk about the bean club. It's not marketing. We heard about another winery here having a wine club, and I thought, who needs another stupid wine club? You know, it would be the most idiotic thing in the world. Let's do a bean club. That would be so funny. And that's how it started. And now we're 26,000 members later. So
With a 22,000 people waiting list.
it's
And
now at 30, believe it
oh
or not.
my Lord. Oh
But
my
we're
Lord.
hoping to expand it and make it bigger. But
What's harder to get, on the Rancho Gordo bean list, on the bean club list, or season tickets for the Green Bay Packers?
well, I'm not a sportsing kind of guy, so I couldn't tell you. But I do know we had one customer, she said she put it on her Tinder profile. She was so excited to be in the bean club.
Hey, beans, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
beans.
I guess they are hip in that sense. That's very funny. Yeah.
You are not just a bean person, of course. You are a hardcore music fan.
Yeah.
And as we talk about in the profile, you have recorded 3 jazz albums so far. And very recently, you did your first concert in front of an audience. So, where does that passion come from to not just love music, but to sing it and to record it?
Well, I've always loved music, and I always thought I would be famous as a movie star, just generic star when I was younger. You know, you have that. I just want to be a star, but what does that even mean? Oh, you have to have talent? I mean, that didn't, that part bored me to death. So I've always loved music, and again, with imposing my taste on other people. When I lived in Italy in '88, and I had a radio show called Mr. Lucky, where I would make cocktails on the air and play American jazz from the '50s and pretend that it was at a cocktail party. And when I came home, I thought I would do that, and that didn't work out because it was talk radio was all the rage. So I started doing a zine, and it was covered by Wired. If you Google Mr. Lucky Wired Steve Sando, you can find this insane review that actually put me on the map for a while. But I guess when I turned 60, I thought, you know what? I've always wanted to sing. I can, sing in the bathroom type of thing. And there's a famous jazz pianist here, Mike Greensill, who used to play at Jeremiah Tower Stars, and his wife, Wesla Whitfield, was a great singer in the Bay Area. He lived in St. Helena, and I just called him out of the blue. It's because also you turn 60, if not now, when? So I went. I was shaking like I thought I was, trying out for a porno. It was so upsetting to me that I was like, oh my God, because it meant so much to me. I sang horribly, but he agreed to work with me. So we worked for about a year. And my goal was to make beautiful records. I think because of this job, I have enough work in the audience. Like I talk to big audiences a lot and it doesn't phase me. So the need to please them with music was more no, I'll tell you what I do, and if you're cool, you'll appreciate it. So it wasn't like a Liza Minnelli thing where you're sucking all the love in the air. So it was just, no, this is what I'm doing. I hope you come along. And so we actually have recorded 4 albums. And the last one, When the Moon is Blue, I'm so proud of it. And I also worked with the Hot Club of San Francisco. It's called the Jazz Hot. So they do Django Reinhardt gypsy jazz. So on some of the tracks, I'm singing with them. But anyway, Mike's current girlfriend had a concert and they asked me to sing, and I did. It was 180 people, completely sold out at the Blue Note in Napa. I oddly wasn't scared, although I was really curious. I had no idea what was going to come out of my mouth when I sang, and it worked. So I'm thinking of maybe doing more.
What's your torch song?
My torch song, I love, well, it's not a torch song. I did The Folks Who Live on the Hill, which is a classic Jerome Kern song. And a lot of people really associate it with Peggy Lee. And in my 20s, it filled me with terror. The idea of living on a hill with one person for your whole life, the kids grow up and then they leave you and you're stuck with this person. I wanted to see Paris. So that to me was horrible. But now that I'm older, in perspective, it's like actually looking at a view with one person sounds pretty good. So I approach it that way. Um, I love I'm gonna laugh you right out of my life, which is a little more obscure. That's Cy Coleman. I mean, obviously, I go narrow and deep with the songs that I love. I have certain songwriters that I just adore, like, but Jerome Kern and Harold Arlen are probably 2 of my favorites. Is that too much information?
It's
Yeah.
hey, remember it's me and you talking, Steve,
Yeah,
and I could hear you
okay.
talking, especially about music. Oh, the conversations we have about music, that's a whole other.
No, and you know what's so funny? I was known for loving Cuban music, which I absolutely did. And because I grew up with so much Mexican culture in California, it wasn't that appealing to me. It was so like it's everywhere. Until then, all of a sudden I heard boleros and it's like really good ones done by someone. Well, it's like, oh, I get it. And there's moonlight and there's pork and there's lime and there's beer. It's like, oh, this is really great. So I actually love Mexican music. Marcella Hazan, the great Italian chef, we connected with Italian pop music from the '60s. So I have my funny little things that I follow out of love, and they end up being really great connections with people. So it's funny. It wasn't planned, but
The questions are lining up on the comment section. I'll call some out in a bit, and then if you folks want to get them formally asked, go into the Q&A section right now. But now we're going to do a bean lightning round where I'm just going to ask the most random bean questions I could think of.
all right.
What is a particularly underrated bean?
Well, all the heirlooms, really. I mean, of the heirlooms now, I mean, I keep thinking we just started this, but we've been doing it for 20 years. I mean, Good Mother Stollard is the Moby Dick of them. And if you can get that, that's a great one. Everybody loves that. Underrated though, I think King City Pinks, which I am so it's so weird to me that no one had done them before we did. Because I remember as a kid driving down 101, you saw King City Pink signs, and so it's part of our culture. So it's amazing to me they haven't been. They're very similar to what we call Buckeye, and they stay whole, but then they're weirdly creamy. Like you don't think they're going to be that creamy. It's a great bean. And Steinbeck mentioned them, I think, in one of the Tortilla Flats. One of the books he talks about
Ooh.
pink beans from King City.
That actually leads into my next question. What is, for you, one of the great cultural moments for beans? In other words, in whether it's a film, whether it's a movie, a play, what's a great cultural moment for beans?
Oh, there are two. One is Treasure of the Sierra Madre, where it's like Walter Houston's asking everybody, "Want some beans?" He's hysterical in it. He's the cutest character. But also in Divine's Lust in the Dust, she and Tab Hunter enter a town that seems deserted, and she spies a plate of steaming beans, and she goes, "Ooh!" So like, find someone that loves you the way Divine loved this plate of beans in Lust in the Dust. Those are two great bean moments for me.
What is the in and out of the bean world? In other words, the most overrated bean.
Oh, I don't want to say, but well, you know
Ah.
what? It would be flageolet. I mean, people all the time like, "Ah, I love flageolet." It's like, yes, I think they're great, lemony and cooked spring-like, but on their own, they're just a step above a kidney to me. So I like them, but I think people go on too much about them, is what I would say. I'm gonna get hate mail now.
Wait, by the way, Rancho Gordo sells flageolet beans, so
No, no,
he's
and when it's spring and the asparagus is great and you got a lamb, I mean it's great, but it's not the only bean in the world. So a lot of people who like them are that way.
if Donald Trump was a bean, what kind of bean would he be?
Well, Goya, I mean his daughter even pressed, she showed them Goya beans. So yeah. No, he if he ate beans and he had the health benefits and the pleasure sensations and the fiber, he'd be a different person. So he should eat beans, I think.
And finally, and then we'll get to questions. What kind of bean are you?
I don't know. A happy bean. I don't know. I love them all. And people say, "What's your favorite?" And I always say it's the last one I ate because we sampled them here in the store. And I think, "Oh my God, I forgot this is such a good bean." It happens all the time, but I'm so lucky now. The staff actually makes better beans than I do. Shh, don't tell them because they'll get a swollen head. But often at the end of the day, we have extra beans, and usually it's about three parts bean broth and one part beans after the sampling. And I love the bean broth. I just drink it as a shot, but I've also lately been cooking my rice and replacing the water with the bean broth. And I mean, I'm not into health, but you're adding all this protein. And I'm not cheap. Well, I am cheap, but I love repurposing and figuring out ways, things you would have thrown out and using them. So bean broth is a gift, really.
Bean broth, el caldito, as my mom would always say, el caldito of the pinto beans. That's what I grew up eating. And then, oh, and then really final question, and then we'll get to other questions. So my mom, I grew up eating pinto beans, nonstop pinto beans. But then later on, like I would say in the past decade, all of a sudden I see in like the Northgate supermarkets, people are now extolling the virtues of peruanos. So what happened there that now all Mexicans are eating peruanos more than pintos?
Well, I think it's central. So Peruano in Jalisco and most of Michoacan would be the bean. And I think
Okay.
the influence of them, especially here, probably is what that is. Whereas, if you were in Mexico City, you probably could get them, but it wouldn't be very common. And Hidalgo, you for sure wouldn't see them. So I think it's here in California, the influence of the Jaliscienses,
Jaliscienses.
thank you, and the Michoacanos it's pretty strong and justified. So they're great food in both states.
Jalisco, the birthplace of tequila, mariachi, and obviously their conspiracy to take over all Mexican culture in Southern California continues with
Yeah.
these damn Peruanos. All
No te
right, Beth,
rajes. Yeah.
cue up the new question or the questions from the audience, and we'll go from there.
We have so many questions from the audience. Also, I put the Rancho Gordo website in the chat, folks. You can, I'm going and looking up these beans as Steve and Gustavo were talking about them, so I get visuals. All right, let's dive on in. Um, can you talk at all, Steve, about if eating, Mark asks, please mention how eating beans as a partial replacement for protein helps combat global warming. Are we saving Earth by eating beans?
I'm not qualified. And I always, and maybe that's part of why I'm successful because people don't like moral food. They say they do, and they don't actually buy it. I've always marketed this or get people excited by it's so delicious and it's this ingredient you've taken for granted. It's been right under our nose. And by the way, they're incredibly green to grow and they're incredibly healthy. But with health and the environment, I'm not qualified beyond think of what it takes to bring a pound of bean protein to market versus a pound of beef protein. Like with the beef, first you have to grow the food for a year and then you use all this water the second year. And I'm not telling people what to do diet wise, but it is amazing. We should be eating much more beans and grains that can be planted in the spring, harvested in the fall, and you're done. And they last for years. And you can put them in your pocket and go to Istanbul and repeat the whole thing, as opposed to beef, which I'm not picking on beef, but I am. Uh, what it takes to bring that to market is quite different.
To that point, Chris Peterson points out, I grew some beans from a few of your bags, and it was amazing. Yet the yield was so tiny, it made me admire you more for turning Rancho Gordo into the wonderful enterprise that it is. Thank you for providing such wonderful heirloom beans for us non-farmers.
And that's part of when people complain about the price, is that there is a role for commodity peruanos, black beans, and pintos. They have their place, but we're growing heirloom beans that have a much lower yield. They're really harder to grow. Uh, the ones we import from Mexico, they're really small farmers who usually have no tool. So it's just harder to grow them. So I appreciate that he or she noticed that. So that's great.
This is a question for both of you. So Steve, you can go first. Mary would love to know your secret bean booster ingredient. She likes to zhuzh a pot with a little beer on occasion, but perhaps that is a sacrilege.
No, and whatever anyone does, if you're cooking beans, you're ahead of everybody else, so more power to you. Personally, though, I've gone from let's add some cheese, let's do like I like bringing it to how simple can you do this? And if it's a good product, you can. So commodity pinto beans, I wouldn't do this, but with our beans, I cook them with onion and garlic, good olive oil, a bay leaf, and water. Like I would never use stock of any kind because you're making stock. So I mean, it's not what she's asking, but my secret is to buy good ingredients. Then you don't need to zhuzh up so much. And then at the end, if it's me home alone on a weeknight, I love chopping a raw white or red onion and squeeze a lime and calling that dinner with a good tortilla. I just don't know what you do better or why you would call DoorDash if that is sitting in your refrigerator. Sorry.
My stock answer for almost all my life was I don't cook, which is kind of true. But then last year, I don't know if it was Steve or my wife Delilah who challenged me to, well, you could cook beans. It's Rancho Gordo. The ingredients are there. And lo and behold, like for a good 3 weeks, I was doing nothing but beans and soups. Well, and in all different beans as well. And I would text Steve because, as a compa, so he would give me just very few instructions, more like, basically what he said. You just need the onions, a little bit of garlic. What I discovered, and I never really realized, more olive oil makes it better for the beans, at least for me. It just gives us this richness. Already the beans are delicious as it is, but you add more, especially for and I love bean soups above all. That's the other thing I learned with
Hmm.
Rancho Gordo beans. As a soup, oh my God, you put in some kale or, whatever your greens are, but adding just that extra little push of olive oil makes it that much more delicious.
And season them enough too. Like bland beans that haven't been salted enough also are not appealing.
I don't know. I am not a salt person. I only add the littlest bit of salt with the olive oil. I think that makes up for it, but that's just me.
That is just you. Everyone else agrees with me.
Man, I'm with Steve on this. Beth, a fellow Beth asks, what about lard as a secret ingredient?
Well, it's not so secret. I mean, it's a great ingredient. And when we say lard, we're talking about you go to the Mexican butcher and get the freshly rendered lard that usually is a byproduct of the carnitas, not the white bricks, which you might as well eat your tire, I think. I mean, health-wise, that's really bad, which, of course, I can't speak to health, and I don't even know what oleic acid is, but good lard is high in oleic acid, so therefore I believe I need more of it. No, fresh, good lard is like duck fat or really good butter. It's a wonderful ingredient, I would say.
Can Patty freeze bean broth?
Oh, sure. Yes. And when you freeze beans, you should freeze them in the broth. You shouldn't strain it. And we use these things called super cubes, SOUPER, and they're oh, what is that? Not plastic. The someone's going to tell me what it is.
Like a
It's
bouillon cube?
no, it's a plasticky thing, and you put
Everyone's
Silicone,
saying silicone.
silicone. Everyone's yelling silicone
silicone.
gray.
Thank you, my senior heart. Beating fast. They're silicone, and it's great because you can put them in 1 cup, 2 cup portions. And I'm actually make sofrito kind of where I'll put even a tomato sauce with a bit of canela and have those cubes and just add that to it. So, I mean, freezing's a great thing. I'm really good at freezing things, but I'm really bad about taking them out of the freezer. So I do have I'm working on that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, Mary's has a link to super cubes in the
Okay.
chat for folks who are into that. Okay, Deirdre asked this question, and the child in me, I mean, kind of wants to know, is there a best bean for no gas? We're talking about farts, folks. Is there an easy way to prevent intestinal gas? The tradition, beans, the magical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. I grew up saying. I
Mhm.
hope I'm not alone.
A unique.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a specific bean though that can cut down, is less gassy than others?
This is my least favorite subject on the planet, so we'll just address it real quick. You should eat more beans. You possibly epazote, which is a herb, also known as pigweed, and you find it at railroad tracks or sometimes in markets. It is thought to help digestion, but it's a fabulous flavor anyway. So even if it doesn't work, it tastes great. Uh, but just eat more beans. And then some people are just gassier. So I don't know. And we call it a gift with purchase. So enjoy yourself, is all I can say.
People are saying in the comments that yes, it's true. The more you eat, the less you toot. It's about building your microbiome.
Mm.
There's a lot of, what about cooking beans with kombu? All right. Well, there's a lot of advice in the chat about that. I noticed on your website, and we've gotten a lot of questions from vegetarians and vegans,
Mhm.
um, about kind of, are you pushing beans as a vegetarian or vegan option, a replacement, as a protein replacement for meat necessarily?
No, no. And I'm an omnivore. But I actually, without declaring it, eat probably mostly vegetarian and mostly vegan as well. But there's something in my personality. It's like, I can't say that I am. So, but I totally get everyone's got a different journey. And it is. So, I mean, I don't need to declare it. It just is. So I don't, am I not answering the question? I don't know.
Not
I'm
really,
seeing
but
in
it's
the
okay.
chat, so many people are sharing where they buy your beans. I'm curious, and maybe I should have reread it, Gustavo. How you grew so into such a huge organization. You employ 35 people. From your talk about having your son on your lap and trying to kind of make this idea work to being in stores. I mean, it seems like up and down the coast in our chat, folks are finding you and you can order online, although several items are sold out on Steve's website. But what was that kind of growth since 2001 like?
Well, when we first started, I think it was Dean and DeLuca, who's no longer with us, wanted to carry them in their store. And I hadn't even thought about wholesale. It didn't interest me because my sweet spot is talking to fellow home cooks because I'm not a chef. And the chefs were great, but we didn't really have wholesale. But we still looked into distribution, and it's kind of the horrible, corrupt industry that makes sure that nobody makes any money. So we never use them. So those stores that are buying them are such good stores. They're calling us directly and saying, I want to carry your beans and I want these beans. Because most stores would just go to the distributor and check, 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 check. And we don't do it. So I you should admire whatever store you find them in. That means that they're taking an extra
Is that
step.
how Delilah found
That's
you?
exactly how this relationship between us started. Delilah, when she opened Alta Baja Market 9 years ago, literally the first vendor that she wanted to stock was Rancho Gordo, and ended up talking to Steve. Steve was already a fan of mine, which that was really cool. And we just immediately hit it off. And honestly, look, me and Steve are compas, but him and Delilah, they're like being soulmates. They get along so well to the point where Steve, we do, every single year now, we do an heirloom bean encuentro. So I know there's all these bean club fans here, but if you want 3 days of peace, love, and beans and all things Rancho Gordo, you got to go sign up. Well, obviously sign up for the newsletter, but also sign up to my wife's store, Alta Baja Market, because we have someone asked, like, when is the next prefix menu involving Carlos Salgado, the Michelin starred chef behind the late great Taco Maria? It's coming in the fall, folks. The Heirloom Bean Encuentro is coming. Last year, we expanded it to 3 days, and I am in charge of the bean monologues where people share stories about beans. Me and Steve gives a speech about the state of the bean, and we have bean songs. I did a poem last year. So yeah, only the best stores carry Rancho Gordo, but only Alta Baja hosts the Heirloom Bean Encuentro. That's my
And
shameless plug.
I just say if it doesn't need plugging though, because it kind of sells out almost immediately. So if you are on the Rancho Gordo or Alta Baja list and you see it and the dates work for you, don't hesitate because it they won't be around in a bit. Which, we also did bean tours to Mexico, which I would never in a million, no, it's just not even on the table. But I thought it would take weeks to sell out. We announced it in the afternoon, and by morning we'd completely oversold it. So there's an interest there, but it's not for everybody. But it's great to find your tribe. Like these are the people that want to do this kind of fun stuff.
The people of the bean.
The people.
Um, Off bean topic, Chris is screening Marcella this weekend and
Oh,
heard you're
good.
in it.
Yes, and the camera makes love to me, as you'll see.
Is there any trivia or insight from your experience on that set that his or her, their film society can share to encourage attendance or support?
Well, Peter Miller, the filmmaker, interviewed me, and I kept thinking I never met her, so I'm not really sure why I'm in this movie. But she was hugely important to me. Was living in San Francisco in the tiniest little postage stamp size apartment with a Murphy bed, but and I was broke as can be, but I had Marcella Hazan's classic Italian cooking, and I would have friends over, and we would cook usually pasta primavera because there was no money, and play dominoes and drink and smoke and have really a great time. And the opening of this movie, seeing it, I started crying. It's like this was the promise of the 80s to me. It's like, oh, we were gonna be more like Italians. We're gonna have long tables. We're gonna be this wonderful, sophisticated country. So for me, it was very heartbreaking watching this movie, but also like that's right. We do have to have people at our tables. We do have to break bread. And I would hear Marcella in the back of my mind, no, don't do that. Do this. No, no. She was great. Uh, but she was a customer, and we connected because of this Italian pop singer named Mina, who is simply the greatest singer that ever lived. And Marcella agreed with me. And then I asked her about which beans she loved from Italy. And I thought she'd mention I can't remember some Borlotti from the Veneto, and she said, "No, no, Sorana." So we started growing them, and then she died right as we got our first crop. I asked her husband Victor. I said, "We want to call it Marcella because we can't call it Sorana because of terroir issues." And he said, "Oh, she would love it." So that's how we got this beautiful bean, and that's why I'm in the Marcella Hazan documentary, which is really when you see it, it's like, "Oh, that's why I'm in it." Okay, that makes sense. It's just a beautiful movie.
You named a bean after her.
Yes, exactly. With her husband's and her son, who I met too recently, with all their blessing.
Folks in the Chicago area are trying to connect on how to get your beans, but they can all order online. Who do you know of what's the furthest retailer? How far
Oh,
away have
they're all
Rancho
over the
Gordo?
country. I mean, Maine. But what's funny is I'm going to be in Chicago, so you should because why am I going to be in Chicago?
Why are you going to be in Chicago?
Possibly to win a James Beard Award for my New York Times best-selling book, The Bean Book. I was
Finalist.
nominated. So I it would be really cool if I won, is all I can say. But it's in Chicago, and I thought we actually were looking like, are there great stores? Maybe we should do a book signing or something. And we actually don't have a ton of accounts there. So if
But
someone,
the accounts you have, Kathleen has just shared with everyone.
oh, good.
Standard Market, Olivesetto, Carnivore Inc., Toto's Market,
Oh, wait,
Southport Grocery, the fish guy.
okay, all right, we'll find one. Maybe we can do something while I'm there because it's actually in 2 weeks, I think.
Are
Always
you
worth
ready for your close-up, Mr. Sando?
I'm always, it's barn ready. Yes, yes.
Um, all right, I'm good. Gustavo, anything else from you? Folks, any questions?
Yeah, there was an interesting question actually that I saw from Gary. How accurate is a campfire scene in Blazing Saddles a representation of bean eating and frontier life? So this is not a question, of course, about the farting. This is a question about how much did the frontier rely on beans for its diet? That's what I'm taking from this.
Yeah, I'm not qualified for either. I don't know. It's a very funny scene, and I certainly love it. I really prefer Treasure of the Sierra Madre and that being seen, but or Lust in the Dust. But I don't know. But I think he's asking about the farts,
You see,
really.
I try to think of the better angels of people.
Yeah.
So that's where your mind goes to, Steve. And the last question I would have is, what do you want to plug, Steve?
Oh, nothing. We're doing great. So I'm I'm kind of good. We
Oh,
are,
we wait, before you plug, this is a
yeah.
great question. Why are there expiration dates on bagged beans?
I will tell you, we're the first company to ever do that because they're Best By dates, so they're not expirations. And, supposedly they found, several 100-year-old beans in clay pots and they planted them and they came out okay. It's dubious, those stories. They may be true, but our beans are all harvested and to you within 2 years is the goal. But actually, we sell out so fast that it's all been only 1 year. So when you buy commodity pinto beans at a big grocery store in Dubuque, they could be 8 years old. So, and they take longer to cook. They lose their flavor and they get kind of grainy. So you do want to, that's another thing you're paying for with us. And it's fine not to, but just be aware. And people talk about soaking. Oh, I'm surprised we haven't had a lot of cooking questions, but people, oh, do you soak or not? I don't soak our beans because I know how fresh they are. And we just put them in and they're done in about an hour and a half, if that. Whereas if I were to buy beans in Dubuque, I would definitely soak them overnight and change the water because I don't know how old they are. And nothing against Dubuque, but it's a tough
Have
thing.
bold beans.
Also, when I was in Italy, I went to Sorana, where Marcella's beans are from, and I was horrified by how dry they were. Like they over dry them because they don't want to deal with mold. Whereas here in California, and this is why California is superior in so many ways, but one of the ways is, with our agriculture, we're using irrigation and we aren't using summer rains that are a crapshoot. We actually control the irrigation and then you can control the quality of the vegetable that is coming out. And beans, people think we only import, but 80% of our production is here in California with beans. Yeah. And we want to keep that up. Oh, I should tell you. So we're starting the Rancho Gordo Foundation, and a lot of our bean growers are older gentlemen, and they all seem to shop at Penny's for this pledge. There's a certain kind of plaid shirt and jeans you get at Penny's that our old ag guys love, which more power to them.
Stafford t-shirts.
Is that what it is? Uh, but so we want to encourage younger people, and it's been hard because they're well-meaning, but at the end of the season, when it really counts, they often fall apart. And it's easy to grow beans. The harvesting is the nightmare. So my new project is to possibly get a small harvester that can go into a small farm because the real harvesters are humongous, huge things, and to do it by hand isn't really practical in California. So that's what we're working on is finding a smaller harvester so we can work with smaller farmers who are just getting started and may not have the same acreage. And we'll see how that works. But that's my new goal.
Katie asks, how many growers do you have?
About 12. I mean, it varies year to year. We used to have two that would do everything. And we've learned it's better to find one or two types, or sometimes just one that they like and can grow. And the longer they do it, the better they are at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sally's radiologist is also a member of the Bean Club, and now she trusts her. Um, there you go. All
Yeah.
right, what do you have left to plug? The foundation, upcoming visit to Chicago for James Beard Award acceptance.
The Encuentro, and then also the book. I mean, it only came out in October. It's called The Bean Book with 10 Speed Press. And I'll tell you, they asked me to write it, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. And I thought, oh, you know what? I'll just rehash everything we've done over all the years. But instead, was a book that took 20 years to write, it turns out, because you want to half-ass stuff, but it's like, I can't. I really have to pour it. So I'm really proud of the book. So it's The Bean Book. Not a very creative name, but it's beautiful. The photography is beautiful, and the editor did a good job too.
Folks, don't worry. Our wonderful associate editor, Liz, is taking copious notes, and we are going to send everyone who's here at this Zoom will get an email later this afternoon with links to where you can read Gustavo's article on Alta Online, where you can buy Steve's beans online. Upcoming, we'll give it Alta Baja Market a shout out because we love Gustavo and Delilah. Anything that we talked about today, we will try and include in this email that you will get this afternoon, including a recording of this interview. I'm going to get that up ASAP. So hopefully you won't have to remember everything that happened here today. If you want to take Steve's advice, Gustavo's tips, all of this bean joy, as someone put in the chat, which is really so much bean joy in the Zoom room, that will come to you later this afternoon. So please keep your eyes peeled for that. Anything else from either of you, Messrs. Arellano or Sando?
Just a reminder, I am also the co-columnist for Alta's Ask a Californian feature, which I'm sure we'll do another live round sometime this year. But please, folks, if you have any questions about California, ask me and my co-columnist. The question this time around, I tell a funny story about the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez.
Ah. He's always good for a laugh, isn't he?
You had to be there.
And I would just say, coming to success later in life is so sweet because you realize this doesn't happen all the time. A lot of people work really hard and don't get rewarded. So when you see it, you should grab it. And also, I think somehow I've had a path where I didn't go the normal route. Like someone at my point should have sold to Goya or sold to a big conglomerate. But you know what? I think as a Californian, I have an obligation to make this a better place because it feels like it's going to hell on some level. But no, stop complaining. I mean, we can do stuff. So in my little corner, I feel like I'm trying to hold things up. And the benefit is I'm having a killer time. So it's not a horrible sacrifice. So that's what I would say.
When you're coasting, you're going downhill.
Yeah, but I'm not.
Someone read the story.
Yeah, that's my father.
Well, with Steve's dad, we will leave it there. And thank you so much to you, Steve, and everyone at Rancho Gordo, and to Gustavo for your moderating today and your beautiful article in Alta. We are so grateful to everyone for coming today and for both of you for the time.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Go eat some beans. See ya.